Welcome to Hotel Tech Anatomy 101. Today we are talking about a very, very important topic, and that is online reputation, especially in today's times. I'm Vasilis. I'm your host for today. I'm the founder of GuestRevu Analytics. We're a hotel analytics and data visualization company, but my heart is a heart of a hotelier. So today I will introduce you to our panel, and I'm going to ask them a few questions from a hotelier's perspective. We have our three panelists today. Amy, do you want to start introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Amy. I work for a company called GuestRevu. So I've been in the hospitality tech space for the last 6 years. So all about online reviews, and really hope you guys are going to really enjoy and take away some really hot tips from us guys today.
All right, hello. And we have Florencia also from ReviewPro.
Hi, hello, good afternoon. So this is Florencia from ReviewPro. I'm product specialist at ReviewPro. Been in the company for approximately 4 years now, and I help sales, I support sales from a product point of view.
Right, good to meet you. And finally, we have Andre.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Andre. I'm part of the sales team of TrustYou, being with TrustYou now for 1.5 years. But originally coming out of the hospitality, have been a hotelier for quite some time and working for technology for the past 10 years already.
All right, nice to meet you all. So let's dive in a little bit into the reputation and review landscape. It has been often said that reviews influence travelers' decisions, right? So to what extent this is true? And how can positive reviews impact the average rate and revenue of a property? So maybe we can start with Amy. What's your view on this one?
Why are you picking on me so much today? Where do I have to keep going first? So yeah, you know, reviews are like super important. It's like having a shop window. You know, people go to the online review sites to check out what their experience is going to be like. So if you're getting really good reviews, there was a study done by Cornell with SDR and ReviewPro back in 2014 that shows the link between positive reviews and how you can increase your average daily rate and not lose occupancy. So it's a really interesting space. It's a space that you need to be really active in. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Florencia, what do you have to say about that? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I wanted to thank Amy for the introduction on the study we done with Cornell a couple of years ago. And yeah, I agree. Like, to me, guest feedback should play a key role in pricing strategies. Actually, some RMSs have incorporated metrics as the Global Review Index, which is an industry standard for online reputation when they provide pricing recommendations, right? And according to STR, online reviews rank as one of the top 3 factors when booking a stay. So they are absolutely paramount. And as Amy just mentioned, yes, back in 2012, we did conduct a study with STR and Cornell that actually has seen that a 1-point increase in the Global Review Index actually equals up to 0.89% in terms of ADR, 0.52 in terms of occupancy, and over 1.4% in RevPAR. So I think this actually shows that reputation drives revenue, and revenue, of course, affects valuation.
Yes, so it's quite significant, actually. Yeah, thank you, Florencia. Andre?
Yeah, so happy to confirm all what's being said already in terms of statistics. And I know there are a lot of other statistics already out there that they're really showing a proof point. There is a direct relation between revenue, but also selling additional services across the hotels. But most important for me, it's always like bring my own experience. So looking back a few years, when I wasn't married and I just want to go for a party, and this is where you look at review and deciding based on this review, is this property going to be exactly what I'm looking for? This, and depending on how much it actually fits this criteria, I'm willing to spend more or less on it as well. This has changed now I've got family and I've got kids, so I don't care that much anymore how far the bar is away. It's more the coffee shop that I'm looking for that needs to be close to the room or to the hotel or something like this, or the beach or the kids club that can bring the kids. And this is, I think, where actually reviews are helping massively. And everyone that, for example, has a family knows how high expectations of kids can be, but even more important, how the wife's expectation now can be. And you need to make sure it's actually you're hitting this criteria. That's why I'm saying the direct relationship is there for sure. There are lots of statistics, but also when everyone's looking back at his experience, you can see it makes sense that reviews are being looked after. That's for sure.
Right.
Well,
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think TripAdvisor did a study that shows on average, a guest will read between 6 and 12 reviews before making that booking. So, I mean, when I want to take my kid away and my family, reviews are really important because I want to see myself in that situation. You know, and budget doesn't matter. If you might be high end, you might be low end, you might be 3-star or 5-star. It's the experience you're selling. So I went camping the other day and the reviews were terrible on this place, but it was exactly what I needed. So for my budget and for my time frame and for my location, it was actually perfect. So reviews are really, really important, but so is the guest experience, and so is what that guest is looking for. So if you're getting bad reviews, make sure that you're doing really good management responses to them, because that way you're impacting the next person's decision. It's not about that guest anymore. You didn't meet their expectations. The likelihood of them coming back is not really great, but the next potential guest that's reading it, they very well may be making that booking based on your management response.
Yeah, actually, I couldn't agree more with you, Amy. I think that's a great point. And I think management response is absolutely key. We often tell our clients, you know, I mean, problems can happen. It's all about how you're dealing with them. And it's all about ensuring, right, you take the time to respond to the guest and you're up to the expectation and you explain what happened. And you do this in a nicely and timely manner as well.
Yeah. So I have a question. So when I was a revenue manager in a hotel, you know, we had a review software, but as a revenue manager, I was not really looking at it at all. I mean, this was something that, you know, operations was dealing with. It was something that I knew the GM is working with it, or maybe even sales. But for my opinion, it was not something that that I was busy on a day-to-day basis. Do you think, obviously that was some time ago, but do you feel that this has changed now, that revenue management is playing a more active role there or taking that in consideration? What do you see from the hotels you work with? Anyone that has an idea?
So adding to
go
this,
first? Yeah.
I can. So what we're seeing, actually, we're seeing more and more revenue managers are actually talking to us. One part is because they're very engaged with technology overall. So this is one, and they're also very tech affine, let's say, like, so they're getting engaged in that as well. But it also becomes part of the decision-making process on looking how far or more can I actually ask with my daily rate when my review score is not as good as my competitors, as an example. So this is what we are seeing that revenue managers are really looking into, but also we're seeing that revenue management system are taking into consideration, hey, how's actually your comp index on versus your versus other hotels in the market, and looking at this specifically also per booking channel is kind of an interesting. So how far can I go on booking.com or other channels where I get business from? When I'm looking at my daily rate versus others, and then in comparison with how is my review score doing in that regards. And everyone, I think, mentioned it earlier on already, is like it's more than 80% of the people are looking at reviews before making a booking decision. So it really is not going to make sense to ask for €100 more than my competitors on the market when my review score is further down. And this, you know, this is where statistics are coming in and saying it, even reviews go over brands. So if the review is worse, it doesn't matter if I'm a brand. Obviously, there are a lot of people still very, very loyal to their brand and they want to earn points as well. But in general, and specifically for leisure travelers, it's more important to actually have a happy stay where needs are fulfilled versus actually having to stay in a brand over there.
Right. Yeah. And with the rates going so high now after the pandemic, you can see, generally speaking, all the markets are pretty high. Do you see that that customers are getting a little bit more difficult, perhaps, or maybe less forgiving? Is there something in the data that points to that?
I think from my perspective, so I'm in sales, so I chat to GMs every day, all day. And I've had a few that are like, what are wrong with the guests since COVID? Because the reviews do seem to be so much harder than they ever used to be. And I mean, I don't know whether that's from people having been locked away for 2 years and their expectations of freedom has just changed, or whether it's because they're paying more and because they struggled, for a couple of years, that finance isn't quite there. So they want to get bang for their buck. That's a terrible term, but they do want to get the experience that they're paying for. So it's really important to kind of monitor the experience, what you're offering, what your competitors are doing, understanding where your ideal market is, and being able to even take it a step further and segment that data, which is why we're seeing tech companies like all three of us working with CRMs and things like that, so they can actually personalize that experience to make sure that they increase those direct bookings and move them away from the OTA sites. We know it's 25% cheaper to keep a repeat customer than it is to find a new one. So your OTAs always have their place. They should be finding your new guests every day for you. And then you don't mind paying that 18% commission. But once they've walked through the door, they should be loyal to you, whether you're an independent or whether you're a brand. They should be booking direct because typically they'll get the best sites, the best value from booking direct. And guests are also kind of clicking onto that as well. So I think it's a really positive time for all hoteliers if they are being proactive, driving reviews just as much as they are responding and managing their online reputation.
I even think there's no choice, because the hoteliers nowadays don't have a choice than actually increasing rates with the impact that we have on the markets now, increasing costs and all these aspects. So basically, on the other hand, they are facing the challenge, staffing challenge right now. So for them, it really is critical what areas do have to actually staff there, because people are expecting it. And really address the expectations over there. So there's really no choice than actually looking at what are guests looking for when they come to your property and what's their feedback, and rather actually invest into something. Hey, I now have got a staffing challenge, but I've got people, and they can actually turn a not so positive stay into something really great at the end. So I'm looking for a chance to collect feedback already while the guest is there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that the guest expectations are constantly changing, and in the current landscape, in just 2.5 years, we've been through a health crisis, to a staffing crisis, and a global inflation. So this is one of the reasons why all departments should have their eyes on guest feedback to actually better understand the guest needs and serve them better.
And I think that has really changed. I have a lot of conversations with marketing teams, with revenue teams, with GMs, even with operations and high management. They're all participating in that feedback now, whereas before it would be lumped on somebody post-COVID. It was a chore that they had to do. But now, because they're seeing the return on investment, they're investing their time in the right places. They're using the technology that's out there to gather the feedback that their staff that they don't have doesn't have time to collect, upon checkout and things like that. So technology is really kind of key for hoteliers at the moment to help with that staffing crisis, to manage any issues that arrive because of those crises that are happening. So, I think we've seen hoteliers take a massive look at their whole tech stack recently to try and make it easier for their teams on the ground and make sure that every department is seamless. So it's not one department and then the other department's doing something else. Everybody needs to be telling the same story to get those bookings and be competitive in the market.
I think technology. Sorry. One last thing. I think just technology is helping to remove those silos and to make the whole teams work together. again, to the better of the guest experience.
Yeah, and I guess if you implement technology that monitors the reviews, then with the little stuff you have, you can really focus on the high ticket items, on what comes often, really concentrate on that and sort of drive your review score, just like trying to fight absolutely every fire that you can. So that makes sense.
Absolutely. I would even go any further. All the details that are coming in there, making it a team approach. We're always saying like guest experience is kind of a team approach. Involve all your teams, share feedback, get them involved. Everyone has its own goals. And I think this is what people in the industry, and especially the ones that have stayed through all these crises and in the industry, they love that. And all they want is actually making guests happy, no matter if it is a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 5-star to other extent than a 2-star hotel. But at the end, they want to make their guests happy. And if they get an additional chance to do so, usually we see them being happy on it and doing so. And then this is where these tools are an opportunity for companies and giving the right tools to the people in order to be better at doing their job. And this is kind of a key also on the HR perspective and doing this and saying, hey, he feels comfortable on doing, because we gave him the right tool, going away from writing everything down. Now we've got computers everywhere, we've got iPads everywhere and put teams to work. And but we're also giving them this kind of tools to actually get the job done easier and faster.
Makes sense. Hey, and there is this idea, sorry to cut you, that hotels could showcase their reviews on their website or be very open about it. What do you think about that? What do you think about the pros and cons of this?
Absolutely, go for it. You should be displaying reviews on your website, because if somebody lands on your website, you don't want them to click off and go to TripAdvisor and Booking.com, because the chance of them coming back is pretty minimal. So they should be able to find everything in one place.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's coming back to my experience with, when I was younger, looking at the hotels close to the bar. Now I'm looking to the hotels close to coffee shops and all this. This is what you want to see in there. This is that's not what's being written on the hotel website. This is coming out of the experience part. And this is where we also, this is what OTAs are doing as well. If you knew OTAs being built, they have the content, they have the pictures, they have the availability. They don't have the experience. So this is what they get from companies like us, because that's what's missing in order to sell. So this is why I believe these reviews on the website is actually the last part that's needed in order to actually make your website a selling machine as well, and not having the challenge that people might actually, now I need to look at what other reviews, so I need to look at other sites where all of a sudden then different opportunities are being published as well.
Fantastic. So that's great to hear. So not only we can keep stuff focused on what matters, it improves revenue, average rate, but on top of that, it improves conversion on the website because people are staying on the website as well. So that's great. Let's switch gears a little bit here. And there are different types of sentiment data that is available. How can all these different types of data, let's say, help the hoteliers identify ways to improve their guest experience, improve their guest operations?
I could say,
Amy, do you want to take this? Oh, sorry, Andre, go ahead.
Yeah,
we switched a little bit.
Yeah, no. I think this is the most interesting subject when we are looking, when I love looking at the data, and I think this is an always changing subject because the demand for guests coming to properties is changing over time. We've been talking about already that the guest behavior is changing constantly, and this is where the interesting parts are coming in. Location is still very, very important when we're looking at what data or what sentiments are coming in from guests. But I think sustainability becomes a more bigger and bigger subject for travelers as well. I don't know if I'm saying this wrong, dietary parts. So are you offering vegan food? And all this becomes more and more important. People want to see it. But even the most important is, and this is what we're seeing, what I'm excited about, is that there's a technology sentiment coming in. So where people are mentioning there's a check-in terminal, and it actually does what it's supposed to do. And I liked it. I didn't have to queue and to check in for 20 minutes. These are sentiments where I'm seeing this is becoming more and more important. I think there will be more in the future where, what are the car charging facilities at the hotel? All this becomes now relevant, and we need to look into the future as well, because hotels need to adapt as well and change how they work. And I think beside these very, very, very dominant location, room, service as well, additional ones are coming in and will be relevant to travelers coming in there.
Interesting. Florencia, what do you think about that?
Yeah. No, I mean, to me, review scores are a great indicator of a hotel performance. However, if you want to drive change and improve, you actually need to look at the sentiment analysis. You need to look what's driving negative and positive reviews, and actually how big the impact of these negative mentions are in your online reputation. And just to give you an example, I've recently done an analysis of the luxury segment of 4 top European cities. And as a result, we could see that room was the top category, hurting the GRI the most. When I dig deeper, I could see that the top concept related to room was air conditioning, right? That was thanks to that 2022 has been one of the hottest summer on record. So, right, in most of the cases, the guests were complaining about the equipment not working or making noise. So, right, this is the kind of insights that will empower hoteliers to drive change, right? So here, actually, maintenance needs to take care and review, right, and ensure all those aircon equipments are working correctly. Why? Because this is damaging your online reputation. And I mean, this example, this is a generic example, but as well, if you're catering a specific nationality or a guest type, you need to ensure that your offer is up to their expectations, right? And also, the semantic analysis, you can never forget to keep an eye on your competitors. How are they doing? And actually, to check what's, again, hurting as well their reputation. Or you can also look on the green side and look at what things they're doing good and what you could actually perhaps implement on premises.
Adding on this, it's sometimes key actually not to focus on where you're weak at, but you should actually challenge your team to actually get rid of the weaknesses, but also focusing on the strengths, so where you're really good at. Yeah. In some properties, you cannot change the location, you cannot change the building. And
of course, you cannot change the location, but you can change the way you talk about the location. Of course, location is one of those things. You can change the aircon equipment, but you cannot change location. But you can change your description, perhaps, or you can make this more realistic if that's damaging your online reputation. No?
Exactly.
So from my perspective, sentiment is one of my least favorite things. And I'll tell you why. Just because it's read by AI, as the highest it's going to ever be correct is about 85%. So, it is really important to kind of monitor and look at, but don't take it on its own premises. Look at other reports and back that up, because there is a double negative in the English language. There's things that can be lost in translation, and it is a robot always reading that content. So don't just go to your sentiment report and go, okay, we need to do this because these are our keywords, or this is what our category is telling us. Make sure you back that up with the data, because you want the data to be as correct as possible. And sentiment just doesn't have that quite for me. I think sentiment 3 years ago was a real big thing in the industry, but people are now using that as a starting point to actually break down and segment that data to understand it in a little bit more detail and make sure it is 100% correct.
So how do you suggest then, if I'm a hotelier, right, and I have all these data, I would kind of, how should I approach it? I will start, let's say, from the big perspective, here's my total review score, and then I will start looking at the different topics. And would you say that at some moment I kind of arrive and I would browse through the different reviews? How would you do that in order to get this sort of full essence of what's happening on this sentiment?
So when we talk about guest feedback and online reviews and having that consolidated in one place, it gives you a whole picture, because your guests are not only talking directly to you, but they're talking about you online. Mm-hmm. So when you consolidate that, you have a massive picture. You have reliable data. if you just take it from online reviews alone, you're getting two ends of the scale. You're getting the really unhappy guests and you're getting the really happy guests. 85% of those guests, you know, that stayed with you had a great time, but they never even thought about leaving you a review because their mother-in-law was coming over for dinner and then they had to go back to work and the kids are screaming and all of those things are going on. So, you know, take action and ask your guests for feedback. I know it sounds crazy, you know, but do a survey to the guests. You know, you're not going to be against GDPR because it is a legitimate business reason to send a guest a survey after their stay. So if you're not doing that, then you're not being proactive. You're just being reactive when you respond to those online reviews. So when you've got a mass of data, you can take a lot more information away from it. So you, for example, can take a certain area that you'll see that you're getting low scores in, for room, for example, and you might pick that up from your sentiment, which is just the wording, or you might pick that up from your overall scores, which should include the review ratings and the survey feedback. And then you can break that down even further. So depending on the information that is fed through into your feedback system, you should actually be able to allocate it to specific room numbers, like room 101 has, you know, 10% business guests, I can't do maths, 90% leisure guests. And, you know, those 10% of business guests are complaining about the mattress. So, you know, instead of doing that whole refurb on the first floor, you can just pick certain rooms to replace those mattresses in. So not only do you get reliable data by including sentiment with the other reports and breaking it down further, but you make sure that you're spending your budget wisely. You know, there's not a massive budget and it needs to be spent in the right places. So one way of doing that is understanding your guest experience, because a guest will see it differently from how you do as a GM or a revenue manager or somebody that's at that property every day. So use all data points. Data is king and it always will be. And the hoteliers are realizing that, and that's why they're utilizing so many more different types of technology and making sure they all interlink, so that data is not only fed from, you know, the PMS to the guest feedback system to the CRM, but to the revenue management system, to the Wi-Fi system. You know, everything needs to talk. And if it's not talking, then you're losing key data points, which might be helping you segment that data for marketing purposes to increase direct bookings, for example.
Yeah, I think Amy has a very good point that A, all systems should talk, and B, I think it is fantastic when you can combine the efforts of online reputation and guest surveys. Why? Because guest surveys, as Amy illustrated very well, it comes in with all of that information from the PMS, so we will be able to know if there's any complaint, in which room that situation happened, which guest was it a loyal guest, was not a loyal guest, when it stayed. So I think it's great if we can combine that and then go through, of course, the semantic analysis and try to, sort out the issues our guests have faced, but as well recognize for the good work the team has been done in some other cases. So when possible, I think it's really important to combine the efforts of online reputation together with guest surveys.
And of course, it also helps personalize that repeat guest stay.
Yeah.
So if your data is feeding back into your PMS, you can see how they scored you on your last stay. You can see what room they stayed in. You know, have they got a birthday coming up, and all of those sorts of things. So personalization really goes above and beyond to help that guest meet their expectations, really. So data needs to feed everywhere.
Let's not forget that reviews are unstructured text, so there's nothing we can do because it's the guest that decides to provide a review. However, surveys are structured, so you can actually guide the guest throughout the feedback that you need, right, as a hotelier. So what's key for you, and you can actually revert that to the different departments. You can link any given score to different departments, so you can set right KPIs based on data. So again, it's extremely powerful where you can combine those two products together.
Interesting. So we have an interesting comment online from Adele Goodman, which said a few minutes ago, listening to comments in context is important to understanding what action needs to be taken to diminish friction points, which I think is a little bit what you've been touching upon, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think,
Yes.
go on, I'll be quiet for a minute.
Don't worry. No, go ahead.
There you go.
Andres, did you want to take that or?
No, I just wanted, because it was so silent, I was just wanted to confirm that you get the feedback. And I don't want to hesitate, Amy, for keep on going. Let us know, Amy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you take one review and you look at what impacted that guest and made a difference to their stay, pick up the phone if they want to be contacted, get back in touch with them, and sort that friction point out. But you need to know, is that a friction point for 50% of your guest? Is it 5% of your guest? Or is it just a guest having a bad day? We all know that not every guest that walks through your door is going to be your ideal profile. They're not necessarily going to be a guest that you want back. So, take everything as it comes and use the data wisely.
So one of the interesting things which you said, the three of you, you said you need to combine data sources. So you need to combine reviews, but think also about surveys, because this is also valuable information. Now on the review side, someone writes whatever they want to write, but on the survey, you design the survey. So the outcome of the survey can, you can kind of steer it in a direction or not. Do you have any tips to give to hotels on how to design these surveys, or some questions that they should ask, or any tips there how they should do it?
I think the key point is making it relevant to your offerings, of course. If you're capable of including pulling the data into our tool, making it even relevant to the state the guest had. So basically, you can actually use data to actually address only the parts that he used, as an example. This is, I think, the key part to make it relevant. Then still, however, I think it's necessary to get as many information as possible. So there always need to be certain questions, and it has a certain length, but there are also stages, and this is what you're seeing as like people or guests in general love giving feedback. And nowadays, they only do it for positive or negative review. The neutral reviews, they're decreasing more and more. So this is kind of seems to be something where they don't want to take the time to actually just give a blah blah feedback. Once guests are willing to give feedback and want to spend time on it, they're doing it with a purpose. They want to say, hey, it was great, or something didn't actually meet the expectations. And this is where we actually should give the guest a chance to do so, and possibly for relevant departments. So basically giving them a choice to select certain departments where they want to give feedback on, and then move forward as fast as possible. You also see, and Amy, you mentioned it as well, positive feedbacks given by the majority of guests nowadays. And this has even massively increased from pre-pandemic versus after the time. So basically, after the pandemic, there seems to be also kind of a certain understanding from the guests towards the hotels, saying, hey, I'm going to still give you a good review on this, or I'm going to make it more positive. Or there was someone that really helped me or did something great on that as well. And this is what you actually can create while asking relevant questions in the survey.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Well, do you want to go first, Amy? No, I just wanted to add that whenever a survey is created, it's not that the survey is created and the work is done. We need to keep the survey relevant. Let's say, for example, you're adding services, like, right now, nowadays, messaging is it's become more and more important, and more hoteliers are willing to implement messaging channels. So if you're implementing a messaging channel, do not forget to add a question right on your survey. So you will be able to have feedback, right, about your guests and how their experience was with your messaging channels. Or as the example Amy shared before, if you find out there's an issue with your mattresses, and I know this because a client of mine did this a couple of years back, they actually, based on the data, they understood they were having an issue with the mattresses, so they wanted to change the mattresses. So what did they do? Instead of changing the mattresses in the entire property, they decided to run 3 tests with 3 different providers, right? In 3 different rooms. So they incorporated a specific question that would show to guests staying only in those rooms, and based on guest feedback, they decided the final mattress provider. So we really need to understand that surveys need to be dynamic and they can have multiple use cases.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the industry's changing so fast, and we see a lot of businesses change as well to kind of maximize their revenue during that time. So whether it be, you know, pubs offering workspaces and things like that, it's important to make sure that your survey is always relevant. You know, answer the questions that you need answered. It might be that this week you need to know this and next month you need to know something else. Make sure that you make those changes, because the best people to get it from is your guests. And also your surveys can be dynamic. So, you know, depending on how a guest answers a specific question, it can drill down into different questions. So it doesn't have to be an arduously long thing. It can be really relevant to a guest if you know what you want to ask, how you want to ask it, and even using the PMS data to send specific surveys to specific guests. Because what you ask a corporate is not going to be what you ask a leisure guest. So you can make them relevant based on the data. Once again, it's data feeding through to different platforms that make it relevant.
Makes sense. Interesting. I didn't think that we would still do this, but you have a point. And I think what Andre said also was very, very interesting, of saying, you know, there's a lot of neutral people out there and we want to hear from them also and really have complete that picture. So Amy, you were saying that this is changing completely. You know, that everything is changing fast today. So I think that's a good segue to our next question, which is, how do we see reputation management changing over the next 5 years? I like to always project myself in the future. That's something I love to talk about, the future. So how do you see that changing? How will technology evolve to support all these changes? Maybe let's start with Andre. Shall we start with you?
Yeah, happy to. How to put it? Perhaps we can make. Perhaps we should make it a bigger excursus and start with where reputation management started. So the first company actually, the first reputation management solution that was built in 2008, that's where it all started. Initially, it was built just to aggregate content from online sources, to give insights to hotels and what are people actually talking about when they have stayed with your hotel. Also giving them the chance to answer very fast and efficient to reviews. At a later stage, this was then integrated with the guest experience management, so with the survey, what we just discussed. So that was a separate tool in the past, and that was integrated into reputation management solution at the later stage. So all of a sudden, you had everything that was about feedback, reviews from bookers from different sources. That was all in one platform, and out of this, you could actually relate then revenue aspects. You could really like where could you maximize revenues? This is where this all was coming. And moving forward, when we are thinking about where we are now since a few years, it's about live feedback. So now it's about the intention to not let the guests go unhappy. This is kind of the core of what we're trying to do. So going away from post-stay to actually on-site, say collecting feedback while the guest is there, in order to actually to avoid him leaving a negative note at the end of this of this day. With this in mind, from live feedback, it goes into communication all of a sudden, because we realize, and that for already a long time, is like guests are hesitating giving feedback face to face. And when we're looking at younger generations, they even don't like doing it, giving feedback face to face. So this is where we actually, from live, we actually found a way on doing this through communication that everyone likes, where it keeps a little bit of an anonymous way, but still the chance to actually give feedback while I'm there, to get something changed overall. And I think moving forward, this is, I think, where we are right now. It's going to be more and more going into communication then from this. It really is addressing change, offering opportunities to communicate guests with hotels to maximize the guest experience. And this is where challenges will be coming or are already there for hoteliers in choosing the right channel, the right channel for the right services. So are you using QR codes in the spa? Are you using possibly WhatsApp communication in restaurants, and someone can give you feedback? And this is where also time is getting critical, especially now with staffing challenges. All of a sudden, this is where we really, once you go into communication, the time it takes you to respond is really, really critical. But now moving forward, away from communication, moving forward, it all of a sudden opens up a certain aspect of experience enhancement. So like when you all of a sudden you have good communication via WhatsApp or SMS, you can enhance the guest experience by submitting the online check-in link via an SMS, as an example. So this is where all of a sudden we, as a reputation management company, all of a sudden come in and say like, hey, I know you as an online check-in provider, you don't have communication channels. We do. Give us the link for the online check-in for the guest. We communicate it. And that's going to increase massively the reach, because we know when a technology provider is sending an online check-in request to a guest via email, they reach approximately 30% of the audience. Adding SMS, WhatsApp to it, it's going to increase it by an additional 30%. So this is all of a sudden where additional service providers can make use out of our solutions as well. And that can go as fast as into payment, send the payment link after the guest stay, which is a massive increase in making guests happy, because no one actually likes to wait in queue to check out. And I even just recently had the experience when you want to check out and then the receptionist didn't actually have the chance to separate the minibar from the room night. So I still like the sneakers in the room. So I still take them, and they didn't get it done somehow. If they're, and there are payment providers out there, they can do it. And we're just a communication channel in providing this way of messages. And this is, I think, where the future is also sitting. So we're going to be kind of also the hub for the communication for other services. And at the end, it's going to be the hotel or the hotel making the decision, okay, what service at what part of the customer journey actually added value to the guest. So at the end, the experience was great. And this is where our tools come back in again and saying, hey, this has really made a difference. You can see pre-stay, this is what the score was. After check-in, this is the score. Hey, they visited the restaurant. All of a sudden, after the restaurant, they really enjoyed it. They've been to the spa. Oh, they didn't like it anymore all of a sudden. And at the end of the stay, this is where you can actually take performance score, overall scores, or you just take an NPS where it's saying, overall, my stay was this. And then the hotel has the chance to say, these points along the customer journey helped improving the guest experience. And this is what I need to work on.
Perfect.
And I think this is a challenge. It's a massive challenge. But this is, I think, where the future could be potentially.
The future.
And
Thank you, Andre. Let's hear it. Oh, go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to say, and Andre, of course, with pre-stay, you can upsell. So, for example, if somebody just booked a room, you can offer them a spa package, a pickup from the airport. So you can maximize what you're getting out of that guest just by contacting them at the right point of their journey.
Absolutely, 100% agree. There's this upselling potential, because nowadays, and this is how online booking machines in certain aspects are actually built. They sell the room in the first instance, but don't mention what else. And this is what we have seen since the financial crisis in 2008. Auxiliary revenues have decreased. And now where we're seeing actually that the demand for hotels might not really go back straight away to the demand like it was in 2019. So this is where hotel companies we're seeing are focusing on selling the restaurant, selling the spa, selling higher room categories, because at the end, it's more revenue, but it's also making the guest happier. If this person decides, I'm going to pay this 25 euro extra, it's making me happier. And we men, particular, we're always under pressure. We need to make sure our wives are happy, and we're gonna pay a lot, really. And even for kids, we pay a lot to make them happy, because that gives us a little bit of the silence that you're looking for when you go on vacation. But also,
I want
What
to
is it they
I
say?
want to
Happy
pick a
wife, happy life.
I didn't want to
That's
say
100%
it.
true, guys.
I want to pick a little bit on this point here, because you are saying, hey, there's multiple ways how you can engage, you can operationalize it through the customer journey. But if we look at, I have a very interesting question that we received for Emmanuel Richter, which says, that's great. Nowadays, travelers receive a massive number of emails and sometimes surveys, and all of that gets lost in their inbox. How hoteliers can increase the conversion rate to collect more answers? But I want to add a little bit an extra twist to the question is often, you can do upsell, you can send surveys, you ask for reviews. There's a lot of things that you can bombard the guests. So how do you see this balance also? How do we choose among everything that we are doing?
I mean, when talking to clients, I always remind them that they should not spam their guests. So it's really important to determine what's the communication and which are the touch points where they're going to be proactive, right? Because one thing is actually reacting to a guest need that might come via a survey, an in-stay survey, or messaging, or an email, or a phone call, or actually the guest asking something at reception. Something else is when we are actually proactive. So I think it's really important for hoteliers to determine when, what, and how to communicate, whether they would like to. What we've seen over the past 2 years is that there's a big rise in terms of messaging. Hoteliers are actually implementing more and more messaging channels. These messaging channels vary based on where the property is located and the guest nationality. And I agree with both with Amy and Andrew on the fact that in pre-stay you can actually upsell to the guest prior to arrival. And perhaps what we've seen right now is because there's a negative trend in terms of conversions via email are down. So right now, some of our clients, what they're doing is actually implementing sending surveys via messaging, via WhatsApp, via SMS, to try to be able to collect more data. So this is a very interesting strategy companies are currently putting in place. Why? Because we've seen that easily around 70% of the surveys are open on a mobile desktop, right? So why not sending them via mobile channel? So this is, I think, where the industry is related to, again, collecting more information. And as well, because whilst, for example, in some cases, the OTAs might provide they might not provide the personal email of that guest, they will, if the phone is part of their profile, they will provide the phone. So, you'll get an additional chance to be able to contact that guest.
Yeah, interesting. So it's getting more and more real time then. That's where basically you see it going.
Yes.
Sorry,
and I would say when people are checking in or checking out, make sure that you're always checking those details, because you want to convert them away from those booking.com and Expedia email addresses. Because whether you're doing it by phone or via email, it's always great just to get them to book direct and things like that. So whatever messaging channel that is, make sure that you have personal details. And that's easier to get once they've had an experience with you. If you ask them straight off the bat, the answer is probably going to be no, because they're scared of spam. So ask them, during their stay, at the end of their stay, and you'll see the opt-in rates are quite high.
And especially if you're adding value to them. Now, if you're allowing them to do an online check-in and online checkout, they will be more willing. They will be more eager to share some of those details, like the email or the phone.
And I know a couple of hoteliers said to me that they're worried because their hotels are geared towards the older generation, whatever old it is. But I think, COVID, in some ways, if we take anything positive from that, it has got the older people more tech savvy. So they're not scared of WhatsApping. They're not scared of Facebook. They're using all of those tools now, whereas before there was that disconnect. But, once COVID took away that communication, we actually learned to communicate and have a emotional connection in different ways using technology. So technology is much more embraced now by every single generation and not just the millennials or the Gen X. I got told at 40 that I was too old and not funky anymore the other day. I'm not sure what age has to do with anything, but people are way savvy.
No, and I think it doesn't relate only to our industry, but other industries as well. They're actually applying messaging strategies to be in contact with their clients. So I think it's the trend nowadays. So I think emails, in a couple of years' time, we'll have enough data to be able to provide with right stats about the impact of the messaging strategies.
I think that's
so you mentioned
data from the industry.
Yeah, and you said something before, which I picked up, which you said, hey, the AI is reading probably about 85% of all the reviews, right? So it's reading all the reviews, but actually it will, analyze them to 85%. So to what degree do you see advances there in the next years? Is this improving? Is the AI getting much more smarter? And do you see any improvement there?
It is always getting smarter. It's always learning. We're always looking at ways to improve that. I think, but not every single guest is going to be amazing at writing. I'm dyslexic, so AI trying to read me is never going to happen. My husband can't read me. So there's always going to be that margin of error unless somebody with a human brain is actually sitting there and reading it, which is why it's just important to have multiple data sources and back up what you're seeing. So AI is always going to get better, but I think, the important thing to remember for the future is the essence of hospitality is not going to change. We're always going to be there to provide a really good experience. Now, there's going to be challenges on the way, like staff shortages. So use your feedback to make sure you're motivating your staff. It doesn't just have to be about negative reviews. Like, we work with an amazing company in the UK that have a whole I'm not sure, my brain's gone now. What they do is they promote in-house throughout their group. So you might start as a receptionist and then you can go on to BGM and they'll train you through that process. And a lot of that is using that feedback. And their staff's really loyal to them because they provide the training, they provide the comments and, back up their staff when the guest is wrong, because the guest isn't always right. But if you're getting feedback and understanding what's going on, and being in your guest shoes is great, but also being there, standing beside your staff and saying, you got 5 mentions on TripAdvisor this month, go have a drink at the bar. Make sure that you motivate those people that are loyal to you. Understand which ones are going above and beyond every single day that they're in that job, and keep them happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, makes sense.
Adding on this, there's AI is going to do more and more jobs for us moving forward. But as Amy is saying, the essence of hospitality is always we want to make guests happy. We want to show them they're special when they're staying or they're unique. And this is also what we should look at when actually giving when we are answering to reviews. It should be we show them we understand their individual purpose of having to complain or even having to actually to mark something very, very positive and add value to it as well. This is going to be important because this is how you're actually keeping these people engaged and saying, hey, he really read my review. He really was into. He wanted to know what my feedback is, and not sending then a general answer where I'm like, okay, he didn't actually read what I was writing in the lines or whatever. So this is where we always need to look at when AI is doing. It's going to help us a lot, and we love it, and we need to use it because we don't have potentially the staffing anymore to do all the jobs that we have been doing in the past. But we need to actually keep in mind it's people serving people somehow, and this is what you need to show somehow over there. And I think that's where our system's just helping hoteliers there.
And another good point for everybody is that, you know, when you're doing management responses and responding to your reviews, it can actually impact your SEO. So it can really help get you up in front of more potential guests. So, you know, don't be scared of responding. Make sure that if you do respond, it is personal to that guest, because a guest can see a generic kind of response. They're not stupid. So if you think it sounds a bit naff, it probably would to that guest as well. So personalize each of that experience. You know, if you don't respond to every great one, make sure that you respond to every single negative one, and as many as you can, because it impacts not only the potential guests that are deciding whether they're going to book with you, but it's going to impact the SEO as to whether people actually find your website or find you on bookings.com. So, you know, you want to maximize every revenue stream as much as you can.
Interesting. Hey, I have something to ask from my personal experience, and that's maybe because I'm in the hotel industry. So when I check reviews online for a hotel or a restaurant or whatever, I check who the reviewers are, and you know, what did these reviewers say, and this reviewer says really, really bad, but what kind of reviews has he posted somewhere else, etc. So yeah, maybe a little bit going too far. But we will come to a situation whereby we will have the reviewers are going to be reviewed, or how do you see that?
Like Uber, you can do that on Uber, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, they will have their own GRI, right, to understand whether they're.
You know, but even if they have a bad GUI, are you really going to stop them from coming in? I mean, like, each guest has a different experience, expecting a different experience at each property. So just because that guest didn't enjoy the hiking trip that they went on and they fell down in, you know, a ravine or whatever impacted that the hotelier wasn't happy with, because they're going on a luxury break in the Caribbean, which may be their ideal trip, doesn't mean that, you know, they're not going to give you a really good review. I think so, you know, I don't know how that would impact. I think when we look at how guests leave reviews, I know from experience, you can go and have a look at what the review that they've left and see what they've left for other properties. That gives you an idea of whether the review was warranted. So if it was an ugly review and you go through and you can see that's all they do, then you can, you know, to take it with a pinch of salt. But, you know, different experiences for different people, and some people just have a bad day.
Yeah, I think that's why it's good, and that's why we all read more than one review, right? Just more or less to try to understand what's the real picture. So that's why on average we tend to read 10 to 12 reviews before booking a specific property, because we need to, we want to know more than one experience, just to try to find the right balance and see if that actually matches with what we're looking for, no?
And I think statistics also showing that it doesn't matter who, readers and authors, both sides are more keen to read actually positive reviews. So for sure, you wanna read like 2 or 3 negative reviews to know what's bad at this property. But in general, I would say, and this is also my personal experience, I want to read what's good at it and want to see, does that match with my expectation, kind of as well. And we are talking about staying somewhere to do business or staying somewhere to have a leisure trip, and this is where I'm more keen on knowing, okay, what's good at so in general, and this is also what the statistics are showing, is like people are looking more at positive reviews as well.
Yeah, so what I gather from this also, it's also a way to validate a little bit how you communicate about your brand, to say, hey, are we projecting the right brand image? If you're a, let's say, adults only hotel and no children, but you're not communicating properly about that, or the other way around, you know, that will generate wrong reviews. So it's, hey, do we have the correct positioning? Okay, so we are a little bit short on time. What I gather from this is that review management software is the gift that keeps giving. I mean, not only it helps with, you know, with having your staff focus on the right thing, on improving customer experience, improving ADR, your positioning, your revenue, but it also helps with SEO. It also helps with conversion on the website. I mean, it's just so many opportunities that you have to improve your results. Do you have one last very short tip per person to say, you know, one last statement that you want to share with the hoteliers? Who wants to start? Anyone can go. No?
That's a
No
difficult
tips.
one. Let's do it. Let's do it very, very strong. Hearing what guests are telling us is the core of our businesses, and other industries are doing it extremely well. When you're looking at Amazon, all they do is listening to what guests are like. What are their users in for as well? And I think we can do that even better on a daily basis with so many different characters that are coming us. And I think that's why we always relate reputation management to the task of answering on the reviews, but it's far more. It's so exciting. It's so exciting hearing about what's great and what potentially could be better at my property. And this is why I think we should all get engaged and be fully in it and make it a team approach for making our industry successful overall.
Yeah,
Perfect. Thank you, Andre.
I think reputation management today is equally important and even more than it was a decade ago. And actually having a tool that helps you monitor will be a no-brainer in 5 years' time. I think it's important to keep an eye on changes in terms of the way the users are writing reviews, because right now we are seeing that reviews are less and less text heavy. This means that surveys will be key in the future to be able to access to more granular data. I think it's important to keep an eye because it is still a pain point responding to reviews, especially to negative reviews. And then I think it's also really important to keep an eye on the top 3 players like Booking.com, Google, TripAdvisor, and see the changes that they might make in the in the upcoming years. Because at the end of the day, like enriching guest profiles with review data, it's becoming more and more important for hoteliers. So I think we have in front of us really exciting times ahead. And guest intelligence data is more important. It's more important than it was before. So
thank you, Florencia. And finally, Amy, one last statement.
So my top tip, guys, would be just to go and make sure that your competitor sets are still relevant. You know, there's been a lot of change with COVID and all of those things. Although it happened a while ago, some hoteliers still haven't reviewed their competitor set. So to go and just make sure those competitors are relevant, because, you know, you want to make sure that you're looking at the right data, comparing yourself and giving the right messaging out. And always make sure you have segmented your data so you can use that in the right places and send out the right marketing messages. That's going to help you increase the direct booking, guys.
Thank you. Fantastic. Well, if I was a hotelier and I was working in a hotel, I would have so many notes of things that I could run back to the operation and implement and think about. So I think this was a fantastic discussion. Thank you, Andre. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Florencia. I learned a lot. I'm sure our viewers have learned a lot. Thank you for watching, and have a fantastic evening. Thank you.
And thank you, Vasilius, for being such an amazing moderator. And thank you. It's been so lovely to meet everybody.
Thank you too.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Cheers.